With Daniel Cormier, UFC heavyweight. Daniel, when you set out to fight mixed martial arts, what did you imagine you would be doing in the sport, and how has it played out for you?
I think it's exceeded my expectations to this point. I I guess I always wanted to be the best. I mean, anytime I do anything, I want to be the best at that sport. But I didn't expect to be in the position that I'm in right now. Fighting on Fox and fighting for the UFC and in the co-main event against a guy like Frank Mir in less than 4 years is it's pretty overwhelming. And I think it started even from the Bigfoot fight. Just being in that situation as fast as I was. I fought Bigfoot before I was 2 years in the game. So. And I'm not, and this isn't me having a boxing background or anything else. Only wrestling, So it's exceeded my my wildest imagination, just because I didn't expect to be this far in the games at this point.
You debuted in a major organization, very rare in the sport, and it was because of your wrestling background. Did you consciously try and shield yourself from the hype that would surround Daniel Cormier?
No, I think you have to embrace it. If there's hype, you have to embrace it. It means that people have expectations of what you're going to do. And people only expect things whenever you've accomplished something. Not every guy walking the streets is, you say, oh, this dude can be something great. No. You have to have done something in your life. And it was from all the things that I had did. And I embraced it, because with that expectation comes some responsibility to carry yourself in a certain way, train a certain way, compete a certain way. It's not easy, and I wanted to do all those things anyway. So the hype and everything else, it kind of added on to it and just gave me a little more motivation to do things the correct way so that I don't let all the people that actually do believe in me down.
Well, I spoke to you before you entered the tournament when you were still an alternate, and you said, if I had to go in this tournament, it's going to be a lot of wrestling. What you actually did was knock out Bigfoot, and you stood with Josh Barnett. How has your learning curve been for striking?
Well, I mean, I train with Kane, Velasquez every day, and he's a great stand-up fighter, great wrestling. He mixes it up well, as well as anybody in the game. And you're right. I was really thinking that I was just going to have to take people down and fight where I'm most comfortable, and that's in the wrestling and on the ground. But it just didn't work out that way. I got in that cage and I kind of just had faith in my coaches and my training partners and the training that I did leading up to the fight. It was something else. It wasn't what I expected, but I guess it turned out pretty good.
It's increasingly rare that there's tournaments in major mixed martial arts organizations. You're one of the last people to rise and be a star through a tournament. Do you want to see that format in the UFC? Do you want to see tournaments come back at a high level because you know what it could do for your career?
Yeah, it helps. I think once a guy goes through a tournament, I mean, when I got into the tournament, I was kind of still flying under the radar for the most part. And now, maybe not from a casual fan standpoint, but from an organizational standpoint, I've pretty much made it to be fighting in the spot that I'm fighting against the person that I'm fighting. My ranking in the world, it all was built through this tournament, So these tournaments, high-level tournaments, allows for you to advance your career at a rate that it would take a lot longer. I mean, could you imagine if I didn't have that tournament and I would have fought, how long I would have had to have waited to fight someone like Bigfoot Silva or Josh Barnett? I mean, I may be getting to that point now instead of 2 years ago, So it did help me increase. I think you see tournaments. I mean, we saw a tournament in the 125-pound division in the UFC. It was kind of unofficial. Johnny Hendricks and Carlos Condit, Campman Hendricks, Condit GSP Condit, Hendricks Condit, Ellenberger, you see where I'm going with it. It's like that was kind of a tournament type of format because they're kind of going forward as they eliminate each other. Hendricks went through Campman, went through Condit, and now he's fighting for the belt. I mean, I think you see it unofficially. The only difference is there's just no bracket.
Can you compare your nerves and how you prepare with the anxiety of going into a competition with your wrestling days and fighting? There's a difference in you're being punched in the face.
It's a different, I used to get really nervous before the fights, but I think now I'm confident in my ability. I've worked really hard, so I'm not nearly as nervous as I used to be. Wrestling, I was real nervous, because it was a sport I worked a lifetime to try and accomplish the highest goal. So it meant so much to me. I'm not saying MMA doesn't mean that much to me, but I just started doing it 3.5, 4 years ago. Wrestling I did since I was a kid. I had a dream to be an Olympic champion in 1996. So I think there was more pressure on me. I know that in MMA, everybody, loses, and your time's, it's going to come, but I know that it's just a fight, and I know that if I was to lose a fight, I would have to just go back to the drawing board, get better and improve in the areas that cost me. It's real easy whenever you can keep things in perspective.
Is there a lesson that you got from mixed martial arts and fighting that you never got from wrestling? Because wrestling teaches you a lot about being a competitor, being an athlete, being a high-level performer.
Well, I think it's just everything that surrounds mixed martial arts. A lot more press, a lot more interviews, more people, more people involved and more people watching. So I guess I guess the lessons I learned from wrestling are just carrying over into mixed martial arts. Because in wrestling, the sport taught me to be all the things you said, competitor, athlete. But it also taught me a more important lesson on how to carry myself as a man, as a dad, as a father. And I've taken that into this sport, so no matter how bright the lights are, when people coming up asking for autographs, I'm trying to carry myself the way that I did when I was just living in Stillwater, Oklahoma. When, the kids club, the kids from the club look up to you. You don't want to be like you one day. And the sport's been great to me. Wrestling was. MMA's been great to me, too. It's provided a lifestyle that I'm happy for, and I can provide for my kids and my girlfriend, and, we live good.